And you're talking in some of your letters about self-healing, and that we have this potential of spontaneous self-healing. Could you share some of your thoughts on that?
Well, we're doing that all the time.
Then
Whether we
effectively or spontaneously, because it seems like it's nearly touching some miracles, or it's out of what human beings can actually understand.
Well, the ways in which we are healing ourselves, some of them I can articulate for you, and others can articulate. Some of them, metaphor is the best we can do, but we're healing ourselves collectively in the very way I just spoke about when I said that as a body of thought, as a body politic, and as a body manifest, we go through these cycles of change and development and growth. Sometimes, from pollution, we go through cycles that show us very negative impacts. And until we see the impacts, as we did from certain drugs like thalidomide, and as we do from toxins in our environment, until people give their lives to show us these backward steps we're taking, we have no evidence. Although there are those who can see it with the inner eye and try to tell us much sooner, somehow until we see each other maimed in one way or another, at one level or another, until that we don't seem to want to believe. And so we need to see to believe. And so people give their lives, just like to a war. They give their lives to pollution.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way that people die to show us the impacts of pollution. They die from lung cancer from smoking cigarettes. They die from living in areas where the water is so toxic, and the air, and endless, very subtle metals and variables. People will show these physiological responses, and it's not until we see those that we recognize that they are spokesmen, that they're using their lives to speak and their bodies to speak to tell us what we need to heal next, and that we are, in fact, in one way or another, undoing ourselves. This is the process. Mm-hmm. As a person might run to save a child in the street who would get hit by a car, other people give their lives to showing us that pollution is about to hit us all. So we have to understand that these are the ways we get sick and the ways we heal. Now, in the book in particular, and what you might be referring to, is I talk about a particular example. And it is this. Let's say that when you are a child, you're in your grandmother's kitchen, and she's baking something, and it smells wonderful, and you feel good, and all your senses are open in the comfort of baking and home and kitchen and grandma. Mm-hmm. And then some horrible piece of news comes at that moment. And in that moment, when you were so open and so vulnerable, something horrific happens in your life or the life of someone dear to you, and that news seeps right into you. And it imprints you in a way that can block you. It could block your sense of home because you were so open in that moment, and now you no longer trust home because something came into it. Mm-hmm. It could block you at 1,000 different psychological patternings, depending on who you are and how you respond in that moment. However will you heal that? 15 years later, an important element. When you were in Grandma's kitchen, you happened to have been wearing your red sneakers. Okay, that day when all of that happened. All right? 15 years later, you're not thinking about that anymore. You've done a lot of work within yourself to try to release that moment, and you've matured since then. The little person that you were is no longer a little person, and you can think about that moment in more mature ways with greater compassion and understanding. But still, something is lodged in you at a cellular level and at a memory cell level. So here you are 15 years later. You're going off on a hike in some beautiful woods with a friend, and you happen to put on a pair of red tennis shoes. Never occurs to you that you're recreating some of the variables of that very day in Grandma's kitchen. But here you are, and you go off for a hike in the woods, and when you pause, your friend takes out of a backpack a loaf of French bread. And you can still smell when you break it, you can smell the baking happen right there. It's so luscious. And pour a glass of wine to drink or cut a piece of cheese, and the smells come up to you, and there's comfort in the grove of trees and with the warmth of your friend whom you trust. And there are the red sneakers, and there are the smells, and there is a feeling of at home in nature. And because that moment doesn't come up and ambush you, that moment keeps going forward in friendship, in home, in health, in the good smells and the good feelings. You rewrite, you reprogram that moment that was a moment that caused the foundations of weakness in your body and limitation in your physiology and in your psyche because of an imprint that happened in time and space 15 years before.
So what are
these
the
are the
keys?
ways
What are
we
the keys?
reproduce.
Sorry, there's a little bit of a lag. There's a bit of a jet lag with the time that when we speak. Sorry to interrupt. I didn't want to. I thought you were done with your sentence.
Oh, that's okay.
So
That's fine. What
was the so what are the elements? Is that because it's some senses that are associated with? Is it the association that provides that healing? Is it, what are the components that are necessary for that healing?
Yes. The components that we talk about here, the way you and I look at each other and the way we see things in the world, we would say then that they are associations, but really they are more fundamental than associations. Red is a frequency. And so anytime that frequency is in your sphere of reference, your body is responding not just to seeing red, that's how we relate to it when we're using our eyes, but also at a cellular resonance level. Your body is responding to no. Okay? And that tunes up all your cells. They're all resonating with that. Well, when you place no for red with oh for home, and then you put family, you start to get a little symphony of frequencies, of tones, or vibrations. And that speaks to the cellular body in a way that all the therapists with all the talk about red and all the talk about family and all the talk about home can never do. As good as any therapy can be, to get to the true cellular level, we heal ourselves by recreating these syntropies, these symphonies of frequencies, gathering them together again. People often ask, why do I recreate the same situation again and again in my life? Well, the answer is there's something you're trying to heal. Some step you're trying to take that will take you beyond where you have gotten stuck in that same symphony. All of a sudden, the cymbal clanks and the whole symphony stops. And there's supposed to be another movement. There's another movement, because life is always another movement. And anytime you stop, anytime you lock or freeze in the movement of life, there's something that has to be opened, and that's a healing. And that happens by bringing into confluence certain frequencies that help you move through.
So do we do this through hypnosis? I mean, how can we bring back, do we need to bring back those memories or call forth or ask the universe to you know, which brings back the question, can we be really heard by the universe?
Oh, now there's another. Let me start with the truth is that if you are paying attention, if you are in your life, if you're really where your body is, okay, you really don't have to try. You will, by nature, inherently make choices that are consistent with your whole universe of experience. So, there are colors you don't wear. And so when you go into a store, you don't even really look at those colors. And maybe every few years you think, how would I be in brown? Let me try again. And you put it on and you say, no, it's still not me. You will always choose. You will always make choices within your universe of relevancy. So without having to intend, you are producing opportunity for yourself to grow. Now, you can also intend, and it's very valuable to do forms of therapy, to do massage, and to do body-related release technologies, really, or therapies. All of these things are useful. But there's no therapist who will ever be as idiosyncratically you as you are. No one will ever get you to that combination of ingredients the same way you will. So all the things that you might think of are useful. They spur you toward things. They ready you for opening. They get you more engaged consciously in what you're trying to heal. But the true healing happens in a gestalt moment that is grace.
And how do we open to grace?
Now there's a question. How do we open to grace? Each of us in our own way, in whatever we find to touch us with the sacred. Some people borrow that from sacred traditions or religions. Some people find it by accident when they climb their first mountain and realize when they're in that relationship to the heavens and the earth, they're somehow open and available, and it becomes sacred. The truth is, no one thing is any more sacred than any other. Looking at the seeds in a watermelon can be a transcendent vehicle. It's whether you come to it with the desire to merge with the oneness of all things, whether you move through your life, whether you meet the watermelon as sweet and delicious, or you meet it as something that grew like you did, inexplicably, from something we don't know or understand yet. A seed? Fine. From whence cometh the seed? So it's the attitude of invitation to the knowing and not getting bogged down by goodness illusions. You have to be totally pure. You have to be totally in prayer. You have to be without vice. No one will ever find the truth of things if such perfections are held. And in my experience, and I say this in the opening of my book, I could make such a long list of the ways in which I am an imperfect human being, and a short list of things in which I have mastery, and still the universe embraces me. It doesn't seem to judge at all that list of things that go with my mortal condition. I can only speak from my own experience.
Would you have a message for people that are listening to this right now as an ending message? And I hope to have the opportunity to interview you again, because I feel a lot of wisdom and love and passion for making a difference and wanting to share that wisdom. But if you had a last little message right now for people watching this, what would it be?
Thank you for the opportunity to answer that. Follow whatever it is that is within you. It's been called follow your bliss. Go wherever you want to go next. Pick up whatever piece. If you're excited about using your mind, use your mind. Don't let anybody tell you it's all in your heart. Stop using your head. Use your head until you've used it up. The next place you'll be will be your heart. Don't try to skip anything, leave anything out, follow anyone else's map. Trust that the integrity of your enlightenment is already motivating you toward your every choice. Even your choices that seem unconscious, foolish, immature, and mistakes. Those are your unconscious, foolish, what was my adjective? Mistakes. Those are yours. They belong to you. They're specific to your journey, to your discovery, to your unfolding. If you can have that much trust in what's already in you, to allow it to unfold without judgment so that you can see it and feel it and come to know yourself in an intimate way, then where you need to go next will be in front of you. And those you choose to consult with will only be pats on the back as you move along, a cup of tea as you keep going. No one will become the guru or the hero that gets you to take their journey. Take your own.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for taking the time for being with us. Especially being with us. Thank you.
It's a pleasure.
So I'm going to